Carnival of Curses. As she stepped off the dusty bus, the vibrant colors and lively music of the traveling carnival, Wonderland on Wheels, assaulted Emily's senses. The Ferris wheel spun lazily in the fading light of day, its seats swinging like skeletal fingers. Emily, a curious and adventurous soul, had always been drawn to the unknown, the unexplained, and the eerie aura surrounding this carnival had piqued her curiosity. The carnival's owner, the enigmatic Mr. Blackwood, greeted Emily with a wide smile and an unnerving glint in his eye. "Welcome, dear. I've been expecting you. We have a story to share, one that will make your heart race." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the carnival in an eerie twilight, Mr. Blackwood led Emily through the bustling crowds to a secluded tent. Inside, a lone figure sat shrouded in shadows, its presence seeming to fill the space. The cursed performers. "This is our star attraction, the mesmerizing Zephyr," Mr. Blackwood announced, his voice low and mysterious. "Zephyr's talents will leave you speechless, but be warned, the price of admission may be more than you're willing to pay." As the curtains parted, Zephyr revealed herself to be a contortionist unlike any Emily had ever seen. Her body twisted and turned in ways that defied human anatomy, her eyes gleaming with an otherworldly intensity. The audience gasped in a mix of awe and terror as she performed her act, each movement seemingly more impossible than the last. But it was not just Zephyr's physical feats that left Emily unsettled. There was something about her, something that hinted at a darkness lurking beneath the surface. And then, Emily noticed it, a small, intricately carved wooden box attached to Zephyr's wrist, adorned with strange symbols that seemed to shift and writhe like living things. The dark history. As the night wore on, Emily discovered that Zephyr was not the only performer with a mysterious past. Each member of the carnival seemed to be hiding secrets, their smiles and laughter masking a deeper pain. Mr. Blackwood revealed to Emily that Wonderland on Wheels was a refuge for those cursed, a place where they could find solace in the shadows. The carnival's history was one of tragedy and loss. Founded by a charismatic showman named Silas, it had once been a beacon of joy and wonder. But Silas's ambition had led him down a dark path, and he had made a pact with a malevolent force to ensure the carnival's success. The price had been the souls of his performers, forever bound to the carnival's curse. The descent into madness. As Emily delved deeper into the carnival's secrets, she began to experience strange visions, dark figures lurking in the shadows, their eyes glowing like lanterns in the dark. She saw Silas, his face twisted in a malevolent grin, beckoning her to follow him into the depths of madness. Emily knew she had to escape Wonderland on Wheels, but the carnival seemed to shift and twist around her, like a living maze. Every path led her back to Zephyr's tent, where her haunting gaze seemed to hold a sinister secret. The final confrontation. In the dead of night, Emily confronted Zephyr, demanding to know the truth. Zephyr's eyes flashed with a hint of madness, and she spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "You should not have come here, Emily. Now you are trapped, just like us." As the darkness closed in around her, Emily realized that Zephyr was not just a performer but a guardian of the curse. She was the one who ensured that the carnival's secrets remained buried, and its performers remained forever bound to the darkness. In a desperate bid to escape, Emily fled the tent, but the carnival seemed to have a life of its own. The Ferris wheel spun faster, its seats swinging like skeletal fingers, as if trying to snatch her back. The music grew louder, a cacophony of terror that echoed through her mind. The eternal curse. Emily stumbled through the crowds, the colors and lights blurring together in a maddening whirlwind. The performers, their eyes aglow with an otherworldly light, emerged from the shadows, their voices whispering in unison. "You will never leave Wonderland on Wheels." As the darkness consumed her, Emily realized that she had become just another soul trapped in the carnival's eternal cycle of fear and despair. The curse of Silas had claimed another victim, and she was forever doomed to roam the Midway, a prisoner of the shadows. And so, Wonderland on Wheels continues its journey, a traveling carnival of curses, forever bound to the darkness that drives it. Its performers, forever trapped, will continue to mesmerize and terrify, their secrets buried beneath the bright lights and laughter. Title: The Sighing Mill. 1. Prologue ****. The town of Black Hollow nestled in the shadow of an ancient, crumbling windmill perched on a hill. The mill had stood silent for as long as anyone could remember, its wooden frame weathered and worn. The townsfolk avoided the hill, warning travelers of the sighing mill and the chilling presence that lurked there. The windmill's old blades creaked and groaned whenever the wind blew, but it was not just the wind that carried the eerie sounds. Legends spoke of dark whispers and long-forgotten tragedies echoing through the night. The mill's ghostly aura had grown with time, waiting for the right moment to awaken. 2. A new arrival ****. Claire Evans had heard the rumors about the windmill when she moved to Black Hollow for a teaching position at the local school. Though intrigued, she never gave them much thought until she saw the mill herself. It stood against the dusky sky like a shadowy giant, its presence oddly magnetic. As she settled into her new home, Claire couldn't help but feel a strange pull toward the hill, as if something was beckoning her. It was not long before she began experiencing strange occurrences, sounds of sighing winds and indistinct whispers that seemed to follow her. 3. The sighing winds ****. One evening, as Claire walked home from the school, she heard a soft sighing in the wind, almost like a voice calling her name. She turned her head, but the streets were empty. Her eyes drifted to the windmill on the hill, its silhouette sharp against the fading light. That night, Claire had vivid nightmares of wandering through the mill, her hands brushing against the old wooden beams. Shadows flickered in the corners of her vision, and the whispers grew louder, echoing around her. She woke up in a cold sweat, the sounds still echoing in her ears. 4. The historian's warning ****. Determined to learn more, Claire visited the town library, hoping to find some clues about the mill's history. There, she met Mr. Miller, the town historian, who seemed wary of her interest in the sighing mill. Mr. Miller told her about the mill's dark past, a series of tragic deaths, including the Miller's family, who had vanished under mysterious circumstances many years ago. It was said their spirits lingered in the windmill, unable to find peace. He warned Claire to stay away from the mill, saying that those who ventured too close never returned the same. 5. The haunting visit ****. Ignoring the historian's warning, Claire climbed the hill one foggy night. The windmill loomed ahead, its old frame shrouded in mist. As she approached, the creaking of the blades grew louder, echoing like a mournful song. She entered the mill cautiously, her footsteps echoing through the hollow structure. The air grew colder, and the whispers enveloped her. Shadows danced along the walls, and she could swear she saw fleeting figures darting in and out of sight. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her, trapping her inside. Claire's heart raced as she realized she was not alone in the mill. 6. The mill's secrets ****. Claire explored the windmill, trying to find a way out. She stumbled upon an old, dusty journal hidden in a crevice. Its pages were filled with faded writing detailing the Miller's torment and the loss of his family. The journal spoke of a dark force that had taken hold of the mill, drawing the Miller and his family into its grasp. It was a force that fed on their fear and grief, trapping their souls within the mill. As Claire read on, she realized the same force now sought to claim her. The whispers and sighs were not just echoes of the past. They were warnings of the malevolent presence that haunted the mill. 7. The ghostly encounter ****. As Claire continued reading, the shadows deepened, and she heard the faint sound of a child's laughter. She turned to see a ghostly figure, a young girl, pale and translucent, standing in the corner of the room. The girl reached out to Claire, her eyes filled with sorrow. She whispered, "Help us, please." Then she vanished into the darkness, leaving Claire shaken. Determined to uncover the truth and help the trapped souls, Claire decided to confront the source of the evil. She knew she had to reach the top of the mill, where the malevolent force was most powerful. The mill's heart ****. Claire climbed the old, creaking stairs to the top of the windmill, her heart pounding with fear and anticipation. As she reached the top, she found a room filled with decaying furniture and a large, sinister-looking gear mechanism. The shadows seemed to converge around the gear, forming a swirling vortex of darkness. Claire could hear the whispers growing louder, more desperate. The malevolent force spoke to her, promising power in exchange for her soul. But Claire was resolute. She recited a prayer she remembered from her childhood, hoping it would provide some protection. As she spoke, the shadows recoiled, and the vortex began to weaken. 9. The final battle ***. With newfound strength, Claire used the journal's knowledge to confront the malevolent force. She removed a talisman she had hidden in her pocket, a relic she had found in the town library, said to be a ward against dark spirits. Holding the talisman high, Claire faced the vortex and shouted, "Release them!" The shadows screamed in protest as the talisman emitted a bright light, dispelling the darkness. The trapped souls began to emerge, their forms taking shape. They reached out to Claire, thanking her before dissipating into the air, finally free from the mill's curse. 10. The mill's collapse ***. As the spirits vanished, the windmill began to shake and groan. Claire knew she had to escape before the structure collapsed. She raced down the stairs and burst through the door just as the mill's old frame gave way, collapsing in on itself. Claire watched from a safe distance as the windmill crumbled, its sinister presence finally defeated. The hill was eerily silent, the whispers and sighs gone. 11. Epilogue ***. In the weeks that followed, the town of Black Hollow felt lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted. Claire shared her story with Mr. Miller, who helped her preserve the journal and talisman in the library for future generations. Though the mill was no more, Claire could still hear the faint sounds of the wind on quiet nights, but she knew it was just the natural sighing of the earth. She was grateful to have helped free the trapped souls and bring peace to Black Hollow. As for the darkness that once haunted the sighing mill, Claire knew that evil never truly vanished. It only lay dormant, waiting for the next opportunity to rise. But she was ready for whatever came next. Title: The Dollmaker's Legacy. In the quaint town of Whispering Pines, nestled amidst towering trees and rolling hills, there stood an old Victorian mansion known as Ravenwood Manor. Its weathered facade and overgrown gardens lent it an air of eerie beauty, but it was the stories whispered among the townsfolk that gave the mansion its true mystique. Legend had it that Ravenwood Manor was once the home of a reclusive dollmaker named Lydia Hawthorne. Rumored to possess an otherworldly talent for crafting lifelike dolls, Lydia's creations were said to be imbued with a sinister magic, a magic that had tragic consequences for those who dared to cross her. Amelia Carter, a curious young woman with a love for the macabre, had always been drawn to the stories surrounding Ravenwood Manor. Determined to uncover the truth behind the legends, she set out one stormy evening to explore the abandoned mansion. As she approached the imposing gates, the wind howled through the trees, and the branches seemed to reach out to her like gnarled fingers. Ignoring the sense of foreboding that prickled at her skin, Amelia pushed open the rusted gates and stepped onto the overgrown path leading to the mansion. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, and the sound of her footsteps echoed ominously in the darkness. Undeterred by the eerie atmosphere, Amelia pressed on, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. As she stepped through the front doors of the mansion, she felt a sense of unease settle over her like a heavy cloak. The interior was shrouded in darkness, the only light filtering in through the broken windows. Dust motes danced in the air, and the floorboards creaked beneath her feet as she made her way through the abandoned halls. With each step she took, Amelia felt as if she were being drawn further into the heart of darkness. Shadows seemed to flicker at the edge of her vision, and strange whispers echoed in the darkness. But still, she pressed on, driven by a curiosity that bordered on obsession. Finally, she reached the attic, a room that had long been rumored to be Lydia Hawthorne's workshop. As she pushed open the door, she was met with a sight that sent a shiver down her spine. The attic was filled with shelves upon shelves of dolls, their glassy eyes staring out at her from the darkness. Some were beautiful, with delicate features and elaborate costumes, while others were twisted and grotesque, their faces contorted into expressions of agony and despair. But it was the doll at the center of the room that caught Amelia's eye, a doll unlike any she had ever seen before. Its porcelain skin was flawless, its eyes as black as coal. There was something about it that seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, a darkness that threatened to consume her soul. With trembling hands, Amelia reached out to touch the doll, her fingers brushing against its smooth porcelain skin. But as she did, she felt a surge of cold dread wash over her like a tidal wave. Suddenly, the doll's eyes snapped open, their black depths locking onto hers with an intensity that made her blood run cold. With a cry of horror, Amelia stumbled backwards, her heart pounding in her chest. But before she could flee, she felt a cold hand close around her wrist, its grip like iron. With a strength born of desperation, she wrenched herself free and fled from the room, her footsteps echoing through the empty halls as she ran for her life. As she burst out of the mansion and into the cold night air, Amelia knew that she would never forget the horrors she had witnessed within its walls. And though she had escaped with her life, she knew that the memory of that night would haunt her for the rest of her days. For in the heart of Ravenwood Manor, she had come face to face with true evil, a darkness that had been lurking in the shadows for centuries, waiting to claim its next victim. And though she had escaped its clutches for now, she knew that it was only a matter of time before it came for her once again. Title: The Dollmaker's Curse. Chapter 1: The Antique Shop. The bell above the door jingled softly as Emily stepped into the quaint antique shop nestled in the heart of the city. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and dust, and shelves lined with forgotten treasures loomed in the dim light. Emily's eyes wandered, drawn to a collection of antique dolls nestled on a shelf in the corner. Each doll had a haunting beauty, their porcelain faces frozen in serene smiles. But one doll in particular caught her eye, a doll with glassy eyes that seemed to follow her every move. The shopkeeper, an elderly woman with a kind smile, noticed Emily's interest and approached. "Ah, I see you found our prized possession," she said, her voice tinged with a hint of sadness. "That doll has quite the history, you know." Intrigued, Emily listened as the shopkeeper recounted the tale of the doll. A tale of love and loss, of a dollmaker who poured his heart and soul into his creations, only to be consumed by darkness. As Emily left the shop, the doll's glassy eyes seemed to linger in her mind, its silent presence haunting her every thought. Chapter 2: The Unsettling Gift. That night, as Emily slept, she was plagued by strange dreams. Dreams of the doll, its porcelain face twisted into a grotesque grimace, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. She awoke with a start, her heart pounding in her chest. Shaken but determined to shake off the feeling of unease, Emily went about her day, trying to push the dreams from her mind. But no matter how hard she tried, the memory of the doll lingered, its silent presence a constant weight on her mind. And then, as if by fate, Emily received a package in the mail, a package containing the very doll from the antique shop. There was no note, no return address, only the doll staring back at her with its glassy eyes. Fear surged through Emily as she realized the doll had found its way into her home, its silent presence a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked within. Chapter 3: The Doll's Secret. Days turned into weeks, and Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Strange occurrences plagued her home, the sound of footsteps echoing in the empty halls, objects moving of their own accord, and the feeling of being watched. But it was the doll that terrified her the most. Its glassy eyes seemed to follow her every move, and she swore she could hear it whispering to her in the dead of night. And then, one night, as Emily lay awake in bed, she saw something that chilled her to the bone. The doll moved. At first, it was barely perceptible, a slight shift in its position, a twitch of its hand. But as Emily watched in horror, the doll's movements grew more pronounced, its porcelain limbs contorting in unnatural ways. With a cry of terror, Emily fled from her home, the doll's silent laughter echoing in her ears. She knew then that she had to uncover the truth behind the doll's curse, before it was too late. Chapter 4: The Curse Revealed. Desperate for answers, Emily delved into the history of the dollmaker, a man named Elias Blackwood, whose obsession with his creations had driven him to madness. Legend had it that Blackwood had made a pact with dark forces, trading his soul for the power to bring his dolls to life. But the price of his folly was steep, and the dolls he created became vessels for the souls of the damned. Bound to the mortal realm by Blackwood's curse, they sought only to spread their torment to unsuspecting victims. Determined to break the curse, Emily sought out the dollmaker's abandoned workshop, hidden deep in the heart of the forest. There, amidst the crumbling ruins, she found the source of the curse. A lifelike doll, its porcelain face twisted in agony, its eyes glowing with malevolent intent. With a trembling hand, Emily reached out and touched the doll, the darkness within surging forth to consume her. But as she closed her eyes and whispered a prayer, a blinding light engulfed her, banishing the darkness once and for all. As Emily emerged from the workshop, the curse broken and the dollmaker's spirit laid to rest, she knew that she had faced true terror and emerged victorious. And as she left the forest behind, the memory of the haunted doll faded into the mists of time, a tale of horror that would be whispered for generations to come. The Shadows of Ravenwood Manor. Dr. Emily Taylor, a renowned psychologist, had always been fascinated by the human mind's darker corners. Her latest book, The Psychology of Fear, had become a bestseller, and she was invited to speak at conferences around the world. But Emily's true passion was investigating paranormal cases, and she had a reputation for being one of the most fearless and brilliant minds in the field. So when she received an invitation to stay at Ravenwood Manor, a mysterious mansion in the heart of Transylvania, she couldn't resist. The manor was rumored to have a dark history, and Emily aimed to uncover its secrets. As she arrived, Emily felt an eerie atmosphere settle around her. The manor loomed before her, its towers and battlements reaching towards the sky like skeletal fingers. Inside, she found herself alone, except for the enigmatic butler, Mr. Jenkins. "Welcome, Dr. Taylor," Mr. Jenkins said, his voice low and gravelly. "I trust you'll find your stay enlightening." Emily smiled, her eyes scanning the grand foyer. "I'm sure I will, Mr. Jenkins. Please, call me Emily." As she explored the labyrinthine halls, Emily discovered clues hinting at a sinister past. She found cryptic letters, hidden rooms, and strange symbols etched into the walls. The shadows seemed to move of their own accord, and the wind whispered unsettling whispers in her ear. One night, Emily stumbled upon a hidden diary belonging to the manor's former occupant, Malcolm Ravenwood. As she read, she realized that Malcolm had made a pact with a malevolent entity, unleashing a darkness that consumed his family and the surrounding village. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and Emily was plunged into darkness. The whispers grew louder, and she felt an icy presence closing in. She tried to flee, but the doors were sealed, trapping her inside. In the darkness, Emily confronted the entity, a being born from Malcolm's twisted rituals. It spoke in a voice that was not its own. "You should not have come here. Now you will join the Ravenwood family." Emily's screams were drowned out by the wind as the entity began to manifest. Just as all hope seemed lost, the lights flickered back to life, and the symbol's glow faded. Emily stumbled out into the night, gasping for air. She knew she had to warn others, to tell the tale of Ravenwood Manor. But as she turned to look back, she saw the entity's shadowy form watching her, its presence still lurking in the darkness. As she fled the manor, Emily knew she had to seek help from the local villagers. But as she reached the village, she found it deserted, the streets empty and silent. And then she saw it, a symbol etched into the door of the church, the same symbol she had seen in the manor. Emily realized that the entity's darkness had spread, consuming the village. She knew she had to escape Transylvania to warn the world of the evil that lurked in the shadows of Ravenwood Manor. She made her way back to her car, her heart racing with fear. As she drove away from the village, she noticed a figure following her, Mr. Jenkins, the butler. "What do you want, Mr. Jenkins?" Emily demanded, her voice firm. "I'm here to ensure you don't speak of what you've seen," "Dr. Taylor," Mr. Jenkins replied, his eyes glinting with an otherworldly intensity. Emily knew she had to lose him. She sped up, the winding roads blurring together as she desperately tried to shake off the butler's pursuit. But Mr. Jenkins was relentless, his eyes fixed on her with an unnerving intensity. Just as she thought she'd finally lost him, Emily's car sputtered and died. She coasted to the side of the road, her heart sinking. As she got out to investigate, Mr. Jenkins appeared beside her, his presence seeming to draw the very light out of the air. "You shouldn't have come here, Dr. Taylor," he hissed, his voice like a rusty gate. "Now you'll never leave." Emily tried to run, but her feet felt heavy, as if rooted to the spot. Mr. Jenkins reached out a bony hand and touched her forehead, and everything went black. When Emily came to, she was back in Ravenwood Manor, the symbol on the wall pulsing with a malevolent energy. The entity spoke to her in a voice that was not its own. "You will never escape. You will join the Ravenwood family forever." As the darkness closed in, Emily realized that she had made a terrible mistake. She had underestimated the power of the entity, and now she would pay the price. The last thing Emily saw was the symbol on the wall, burning with an evil intensity. And then, she was consumed by the shadows, never to be seen again. The villagers whispered of Dr. Taylor's disappearance, how she had uncovered secrets best left buried. They spoke of Ravenwood Manor, a place of darkness and terror, where the living were not welcome. And in the heart of the manor, the entity waited, patient and eternal, waiting for its next victim. The Hollow Vale. The town of Willowside had a long history of mysterious disappearances. Locals spoke in hushed tones of the Hollow Vale, a dense, eerie fog that swept through the town without warning. The fog brought with it an unsettling silence, and those who ventured into it were never seen again. Some whispered that the fog was a living, hungry thing, preying on the unwary. Elena Mathis had grown up in Willowside, and like everyone else in the town, she had heard the old stories about the Hollow Vale, yet she had never truly believed them. Now, after living in the city for a few years, she was returning home for her mother's funeral. The journey was long, and Elena's mind drifted as she drove through the dark countryside. As she neared Willowside, a sudden, thick mist began to form. Elena's grip tightened on the steering wheel, and she slowed her car. The world around her was swallowed by the fog, and she could barely see beyond the hood of her car. She felt a shiver run down her spine as a deep sense of unease settled in her gut. The fog seemed almost tangible, and she fought the urge to turn around. When she finally reached her family home, she was surprised to find it deserted. The house stood dark and silent, its windows clouded with dust. She knocked on the door, her heart pounding in her chest. When no one answered, she tried the handle and found it unlocked. Hesitantly, she entered the house. The air inside was cold and stale. Elena called out for her father, but the house remained eerily silent. She walked through the rooms, searching for any sign of her father or any other family members who might have come for the funeral. Instead, she found the house in disarray. Furniture overturned, papers scattered across the floor. It was as if a violent struggle had taken place. Elena's fear deepened as she walked up the creaky staircase. The walls seemed to close in on her, and every step she took echoed through the empty house. When she reached her parents' bedroom, she found the bed stripped bare, the closet empty. She took a deep breath and entered the room, her eyes scanning for any clues. A faint scratching noise drew her attention to the wall beside the bed. She approached cautiously, her eyes narrowing as she tried to make out the source of the sound. The scratching seemed to be coming from behind the wall. With trembling hands, she pushed against the wood paneling, feeling for any loose boards. To her surprise, a hidden door swung open with a creak. A narrow, dark passage stretched into the unknown. Elena's instincts screamed at her to turn back, but something compelled her to enter the passage. She took a flashlight from her pocket and stepped inside. The passage twisted and turned, leading her deep into the bowels of the house. The air grew colder, and she could hear faint whispers echoing off the walls. The whispers seemed to come from all directions, and she couldn't make out any distinct words. After what felt like an eternity, the passage opened into a cavernous chamber. Elena's flashlight revealed ancient, decaying walls covered in strange symbols. At the center of the chamber stood a massive stone altar, stained dark with age. A heavy, oppressive atmosphere hung in the air, and Elena's breath caught in her throat. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from the shadows behind the altar. Elena's flashlight revealed the gaunt, twisted form of her father. His eyes were sunken, and his skin was pallid. He looked as though he had been through hell and back. "Dad!" Elena cried out, rushing toward him. But as she reached him, she froze in horror. Her father's mouth twisted into a grotesque smile, and his voice was no longer his own. It was the voice of something ancient and malevolent. "Welcome to the Hollow Vale, Elena," the voice said, echoing through the chamber. "Your time has come to join us." Elena tried to back away, but the floor beneath her feet seemed to shift, trapping her in place. The whispers grew louder, and she could see figures emerging from the shadows. Townspeople she recognized, all with the same vacant, haunted expressions. The fog outside thickened, and the whispers rose to a deafening roar. Elena's flashlight flickered, and then went out, plunging the chamber into darkness. The last thing she heard before she was swallowed by the veil was her father's voice, twisted and chilling. "There's no escape, Elena. The Hollow Vale claims all." The whispers in the mist. The tiny village of Hollow Glen had been shrouded in mystery for as long as anyone could remember. Surrounded by dense, ancient woods, the town seemed trapped in time, its stone cottages and cobblestone paths unchanged for centuries. The village was perpetually cloaked in a thick mist that drifted down from the hills, carrying with it an eerie quiet. No one in the outside world spoke of Hollow Glen except in hushed tones, sharing tales of its haunted reputation and otherworldly happenings. It was late October when a young writer named Eliza Matthews arrived in Hollow Glen. She had heard rumors of the village's haunted past and strange occurrences, and it intrigued her enough to abandon her apartment in the city and move to Hollow Glen in search of inspiration. She rented an old, creaky cottage at the edge of town, which was said to be uninhabited for years. Its wooden beams and weather-worn shingles hinted at the many stories it could tell. Eliza settled in, unpacking her few belongings and arranging her writing desk by the window. From there, she could see the mist rolling in through the trees, swallowing up the forest in a thick white veil. The stillness was unsettling, but it fueled her imagination. She began working on a novel inspired by the village's mysterious reputation. The first few nights passed without incident. Eliza spent her days writing and exploring the town, speaking with the locals about the legends that surrounded Hollow Glen. She learned of the whispers, strange voices heard in the night, carried on the mist, telling secrets of the past and future. Villagers warned her not to stray too far from her home after dark, lest she become lost in the woods and fall victim to the whispers. Eliza was skeptical of the tales, believing them to be the product of overactive imaginations and superstition. However, she couldn't deny the sense of foreboding that settled over her each evening as the mist thickened. It was on the 7th night of her stay that she experienced her first encounter with the whispers. The night was unusually quiet, the only sound being the rustling of leaves in the forest. Eliza sat at her desk, writing by candlelight, when she heard faint voices outside her window. She dismissed them as her imagination at first, but as the voices grew louder, she realized they were real. Intrigued, she stepped outside onto her porch. The mist enveloped her, and the voices swirled around her like a cold breath. They spoke in hushed tones, whispering her name and revealing secrets she had never shared with anyone. Eliza's heart raced as she listened to the ghostly murmurs, unsure whether to be frightened or fascinated. The voices seemed to beckon her toward the forest, promising to reveal truths she had never known. Despite the warnings of the villagers, Eliza followed the voices, drawn to their eerie allure. She walked through the mist-shrouded woods, the voices guiding her deeper into the forest. The air grew colder, and the trees twisted into grotesque shapes, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal hands. As Eliza ventured further, she stumbled upon an ancient stone circle hidden within the woods. The stones were covered in moss and lichen, and the ground around them was barren and cold. The whispers grew louder, echoing off the stones, as if the forest itself was alive and speaking to her. The whispers spoke of the village's dark past, revealing a history of betrayal, bloodshed, and forbidden rituals. Eliza was horrified to learn that the stone circle was once a place of sacrifice, where villagers had offered blood to appease the spirits of the forest. The ritual had kept the village safe from harm, but at a terrible cost. As Eliza listened, she realized the whispers were not just telling her the past, but also foretelling her own fate. The voices spoke of her arrival in Hollow Glen as part of a prophecy, one that would bring about the village's salvation or destruction. Eliza's choices would determine the outcome. Terrified, Eliza turned to leave the stone circle, but the whispers grew louder, urging her to stay. She felt a chilling presence behind her and turned to see a shadowy figure emerging from the mist. The figure was tall and gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to hold the secrets of the ages. "Stay," the figure whispered, its voice blending with the others. "Fulfill the prophecy, Eliza." Eliza's heart raced as she realized she was no longer alone in the forest. The figure's presence was suffocating, and she knew she had to escape. She turned and ran, the whispers following her as she fled through the woods. She burst out of the forest and into the village, her breath ragged and her mind racing. She rushed back to her cottage, locking the door behind her. The whispers continued outside, but she tried to block them out as she gathered her belongings. She knew she had to leave Hollow Glen before it was too late. As Eliza packed, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She glanced out the window and saw the shadowy figure standing at the edge of her yard, its hollow eyes fixed on her. Fear surged through her, but she refused to give in. She grabbed her bag and fled the cottage, running toward her car. The mist thickened around her, and the whispers grew louder. Eliza struggled to find her way through the dense fog, her heart pounding in her chest. Just as she reached her car, she felt a cold hand grasp her shoulder. Eliza turned, expecting to face the shadowy figure, but found herself alone in the mist. The whispers fell silent, and the air grew still. Confused and terrified, she climbed into her car and drove away from Hollow Glen, never looking back. The village vanished into the mist as Eliza sped away, her mind haunted by the whispers and the shadowy figure. She knew she had escaped Hollow Glen, but she would never forget the horrors she had witnessed there. The village's secrets would remain hidden in the mist, waiting for the next lost soul to stumble upon them. Title: The Forgotten Mansion. In the heart of the dense woods stood an abandoned mansion, its once grand facade now weather-beaten and draped in ivy. Legends whispered of its haunting, of spirits that roamed its halls, and of a darkness that clung to its every corner. Few dared to venture near, but curiosity often beckoned the brave. One stormy night, a group of friends gathered around a crackling fire, swapping tales of the supernatural. Among them was Sarah, a skeptic who scoffed at the notion of ghosts and ghouls. But when her friends proposed a dare to spend the night in the forsaken mansion, she couldn't resist the challenge. With flashlights in hand, they ventured into the woods, guided only by the faint glow of the moon. The wind howled through the trees, and the branches whispered secrets of the past. As they approached the mansion, a sense of foreboding washed over them. The door creaked open with a deafening groan, revealing a darkness that seemed to swallow the light. Sarah's friends hesitated, but she pressed on, determined to prove her fearlessness. They explored the mansion room by room, their footsteps echoing through the empty halls. As the night wore on, strange things began to happen. Shadows danced in the corners of their vision, and whispers echoed through the halls. Sarah brushed them off as tricks of the mind, but unease settled in her chest like a weight. In the dim light of a flickering candle, they stumbled upon a locked door hidden in the depths of the mansion. Intrigued, they searched for a key, their curiosity overpowering their fear. Finally, they found it, hidden beneath a loose floorboard. With trembling hands, Sarah unlocked the door, revealing a staircase that descended into darkness. Against her better judgment, she led the way, her friends close behind. The air grew colder with each step, and the whispers grew louder, like a chorus of lost souls. At the bottom of the staircase, they found themselves in a forgotten chamber, its walls adorned with eerie symbols and faded tapestries. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, upon which rested a tarnished mirror. Sarah approached it cautiously, her reflection warped and twisted in its surface. As she reached out to touch the mirror, a voice whispered in her ear, chilling her to the bone. "Do you dare to see the truth?" it asked, sending shivers down her spine. Without hesitation, she nodded, her curiosity overpowering her fear. The mirror shimmered, and suddenly, Sarah found herself standing in a different place entirely. The mansion was gone, replaced by a desolate landscape shrouded in darkness. She called out to her friends, but there was no response, only the echo of her own voice. Panic set in as she realized she was alone, trapped in this strange realm with no means of escape. The darkness closed in around her, suffocating her with its oppressive weight. She stumbled through the darkness, desperate to find a way out. But the more she searched, the deeper she seemed to sink into the darkness. Shadows danced around her, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes. She could feel eyes watching her from the shadows, their gaze filled with malice. Just as she began to lose hope, a faint light appeared in the distance, drawing her towards it like a moth to a flame. With renewed determination, she pressed on, ignoring the whispers that echoed through the darkness. As she drew closer to the light, she realized it was coming from the mirror, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly glow. Without hesitation, she reached out and touched it, willing it to return her to the world she knew. The mirror shimmered once more, and suddenly, Sarah found herself back in the abandoned mansion. Her friends gathered around her with looks of concern. They had feared the worst when she vanished before their eyes. With trembling hands, Sarah recounted her ordeal, her words filled with a sense of urgency. But her friends dismissed it as a trick of the mind, a side effect of spending the night in the haunted mansion. But Sarah knew the truth. She had glimpsed the darkness that lurked within the mansion, and she knew that it hungered for more than just her fear. As they fled the mansion and returned to the safety of their homes, she couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness was still out there, waiting for its next victim. And so, the legend of the abandoned mansion lived on, a warning to all who dared to tread its halls. For in the heart of the darkness, there are secrets best left undisturbed. The abyssal void. In the depths of the ocean, where the darkness was only illuminated by the faint glow of bioluminescent creatures, there existed a research facility like no other. The abyssal void was a state-of-the-art laboratory, home to a team of scientists who delved into the mysteries of the deep. The facility was a marvel of modern engineering, a testament to human curiosity and ingenuity. Dr. Maria Rodriguez, a renowned oceanographer, had assembled a team of experts to investigate the strange occurrences in the abyssal zone. They had been warned about the eerie feeling of being watched, but they dismissed it as mere paranoia. The team consisted of Dr. John Taylor, a marine biologist, Dr. Sophia Patel, a geologist, Dr. Michael Chun, a physicist, and Dr. Emily Lee, a psychologist. Together, they aimed to uncover the secrets of the deep, the descent into madness. As they explored the dark, icy waters, they stumbled upon an ancient structure hidden beneath the sediment. It was an alien artifact, emitting a strange energy signal that seemed to be calling to them. The team was ecstatic, but their excitement was short-lived. The artifact began to manipulate their minds, conjuring hallucinations and twisted visions. The scientists were trapped in a living nightmare, as the abyssal void seemed to be closing in around them. Dr. Taylor was the first to succumb to the madness, his mind shattered by the horrors he had witnessed. He became convinced that the artifact was alive, and it was speaking to him in a language that only he could understand. Dr. Patel followed soon after, her mind consumed by the darkness. She began to see things that were not there, and her colleagues grew concerned for her safety. Dr. Chun was the next to fall, his mind broken by the abyssal void's wrath. He became paranoid, convinced that his colleagues were plotting against him. Dr. Lee tried to intervene, but it was too late. Dr. Chen's mind was gone, consumed by the darkness. The void's wrath. Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Lee were the last ones standing, their minds shattered by the horrors they had witnessed. They discovered the terrible truth. The artifact was a portal to an otherworldly realm, and the void was hungry for human souls. The abyssal void unleashed its wrath upon them, conjuring creatures that defied explanation. The darkness coalesced into grotesque, tentacled beings that dragged them down into the depths. As they descended into the abyss, Dr. Rodriguez realized that the artifact was not just a portal. It was a gateway to a realm of eternal torment. The void was a prison, created by an ancient civilization to contain the horrors that lurked within. The team had unleashed the void's wrath, and now they would pay the price. The legacy of the abyssal void. The research facility was abandoned, left to the mercy of the abyssal void. The artifact remained, waiting for its next victim, as the darkness continued to whisper secrets to those who dared to listen. The abyssal void became a legend, a cautionary tale told to frighten children into behaving. But the truth remained: the void was real, and it was waiting for its next victim. Years later, a brave expedition ventured into the abyss, seeking to uncover the truth. They found only the remnants of the research team, their minds shattered by the horrors they had experienced. The abyssal void remained, a haunting reminder of the terrors that lurked in the darkest depths of the ocean. The expedition team discovered Dr. Rodriguez's journal, detailing the horrors they had faced. They learned of the artifact, the portal to the otherworldly realm, and the void's insatiable hunger for human souls. They realized that some secrets were better left unspoken, and some horrors were too great to be contained. As they fled the abyss, they knew that they would never forget the terror they had faced. The abyssal void remained, a constant reminder of the horrors that lurked in the darkest depths of the ocean, waiting for its next victim. Title: Void's Embrace. In the vast expanse of space, where the stars whispered secrets of ancient civilizations and the void echoed with the silence of eternity, there drifted a vessel lost to the ages, a derelict spacecraft known only as the Erebos. Its hull scarred by the ravages of time and its systems long since dormant, the Erebos floated aimlessly through the cosmos, a ghost ship haunted by the memories of its past. For decades, the Erebos had drifted through the void, its origins lost to the annals of time. Some whispered that it was a relic of a forgotten era, a remnant of a doomed expedition to the outer reaches of the galaxy. Others claimed that it was a vessel of extraterrestrial origin, its alien creators long since vanished from the universe. But regardless of its origins, one thing was certain: the Erebos was a place of darkness and despair, a realm where the laws of reality ceased to hold sway and the boundaries between the living and the dead blurred into obscurity. It was into this realm of cosmic horror that Captain Miranda Reed and her crew found themselves drawn one fateful day. Tasked with investigating the disappearance of a nearby research station, they stumbled upon the derelict hulk of the Erebos drifting amidst the stars, a sight that sent shivers down their spines and set their hearts racing with fear. Despite their misgivings, Captain Reed and her crew boarded the Erebos, their senses on high alert for any sign of danger. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the sound of their footsteps echoed ominously in the empty corridors. As they explored the abandoned vessel, they felt the weight of centuries pressing down upon them, and a sense of unease settled like a chill in their bones. Strange symbols adorned the walls, their meaning lost to the passage of time, and eerie whispers echoed through the empty halls. But Captain Reed and her crew pressed on, their courage outweighing their fear as they delved deeper into the bowels of the Erebos. They searched every corner and crevice, their senses honed for any sign of life amidst the darkness. It was then that they first encountered the entity that lurked within the depths of the derelict spacecraft, a creature of pure cosmic horror, its form shifting and twisting with each passing moment. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and its voice echoed with the screams of 1,000 tormented souls. With each encounter, Captain Reed and her crew felt their grip on reality slipping away, their minds consumed by the darkness that surrounded them. They knew that they were running out of time, that they would soon become nothing more than another lost soul trapped within the cursed confines of the Erebos. In a final, desperate bid for survival, Captain Reed confronted the entity that lurked within the heart of the derelict spacecraft, her heart pounding in her chest as she prepared to face her ultimate fate. And as the final battle raged on, she unleashed powers beyond her comprehension, fighting with a ferocity born of desperation and fear. And in the end, only silence remained in the empty corridors of the Erebos, a silence that spoke of the horrors that had unfolded within its cursed confines. For Captain Reed had faced her demons and emerged victorious, but the darkness that lurked within the derelict spacecraft would forever remain a threat to those who dared to venture into its grasp. And so, the legend of the Erebos lived on, a cautionary tale whispered in hushed tones to warn future generations of the dangers that lurked within the depths of space. For in the vast expanse of the cosmos, where stars burned bright and voids yawned wide, there lay a darkness that could never truly be vanquished, a darkness that waited patiently for its next victims to stumble upon its haunted halls.